So life back up on the farm with my sister and her kids. We had a great life up there, up in the mountains. We used to have this old, what was it? Dumpy truck. This little dumpy truck, like with the bucket on the front. And we'd get in it and we'd go up to the mountains and we'd cut firewood and load it all in there, and the kids and the dogs and everything would be with us, but it had no bloody steering, so you'd be twirling around like this to go one way, and then you'd get there and then you'd have to go really fast back this other way. But it was handy anyway. We used to do everything with it. We'd go up for rides, take the kids up for rides, up through the mountains and things, and it was fun times, really good times between my sister and myself. My sister's youngest son, he was a funny little character. He always had a weapon in his hand. We used to call it his weapon. He'd have a piece of hose or something, he'd have it slung over his shoulder, and he'd be in his gumboots and he'd be walking around everywhere slashing things and that. Well, anyway, one day he went up and he hit one of the ponies on the backside as he walked past. So the pony kicked him. She didn't kick him hard, she just kicked him to say, hey, stop doing that. And he come down to me crying and going on. I said, what happened? And he said, the pony kicked me. I said, what did you do to the pony? And he said, I hit her with my pipe. I said, well, don't hit the ponies, otherwise they're going to kick you. One time when my sister was away, of course, all three kids came and stayed down in my house with me. And I used to have a possum up in the ceiling, and he'd scratch around over night time or whatever. And my little nephew woke up and he didn't like the scratchy thing in the ceiling. So he come and jumped into bed with me. And then his sister decided she was coming in with me. And then my daughter decided she was coming in with me. And then, of course, the dog and the cat had to come. So I had all of them in the bed with me. But I didn't mind. Auntie Ra loved them. Oh, Ra, there you go. My little niece couldn't say Loretta when she was young, so she used to call me Ra. So that kind of stuck, and it still sticks now over these years. A lot of my family, my brother calls me Ra. My nieces and nephews all call me Ra. Some of my friends from the old days. Yeah, it's kind of cute. My sister and I had been into town one day shopping, but prior to going into town the day before, her car had broken down partway down the driveway, so it was sitting there. We couldn't get it going. And we'd gone into town shopping, and when we come home, here was these two men wandering through one of my sheds, and I thought, what are these two guys doing? So I got out of the car and I said, can I help you gentlemen? And they said, yeah, we're just looking for water, because it was in the drought at that time. And I said, well, you're not going to find it in the shed. And I got them out of the shed, and there was a lot of springs up in the mountains where I lived, and they were looking for water for the cattle, and in which I understood. But anyway, we got talking to these two gentlemen, and one of them, he said to me, he said, what's the young colt you got in the yard? I said, he's a young thoroughbred. I'm just about to start breaking him in. And we got chatting a bit. Well, this man ended up being my next husband. But we didn't get together then. A week or so later, or the next day, they sent their mechanic up from the farm to fix my sister's car, which was really great. I didn't see Bob again that day. I was back in Brisbane working, but they sent the mechanic up and fixed my sister's car and got that going for her, which was fantastic for them to do that. So my sister and I had settled in life on the farm, and it was about time we went to the stock sales. We wanted to buy some cattle or a pig or, something to feed us, make some money on the property. So off we goes to this cattle sales. And at the cattle sales, here was Bob. Now this is where my mother said that I would actually meet him, but I didn't actually meet him there. But this is where our relationship kind of got started from, was at these cattle sales. We started to have a bit of a chat to each other and whatever, and I invited him up to the farm. I said, if you want to come up and we can go for a ride through the mountains and do things. And so he did. He was up there that afternoon, and he used to come up there nearly every afternoon, and we spent quite a lot of time together. We started breaking in the young horse together and things. And then he would come up sometimes late in an afternoon, and he would spend most of the evening there. But then he would go home back to where he was. As far as I knew, he was a single man. So that's coming too. So he asked, Bob and I had been sort of seeing each other, he'd been coming up for a little while, and he said to me one day, he said, how would you feel if I arrived up here with all my things in the car and said, hey, I'm here, let's make a life together, or I can't remember his exact words, but similar to that. And I went, well, yeah, I'd probably say, let's go and have a cup of tea and have a chat about it, and then we'll unload the car. Well, the next day he did. He rolled up there with everything thrown in the front of his car. Now, this is a man that I thought was a complete single man. Always led me to believe he was single. But when we went to get his clothes out of the car, they were all folded and nicely ironed and everything. And I said to him, you're not a single man. You've actually come here from another woman. Well, that took him back, because thinking that this is my bit of an intuition that I have going for me. And yes, then he told me the story about how he'd been with this woman for about 12 years or something, I think it was. She was a bit older than what he was. They were having issues. She wouldn't get married. She didn't want to have a child, and different things. So he decided to make a new life for himself with me. He was there for actually exactly a month to one day. And next thing he went down, he had to go and change his sprinklers around at the farm where him and her both worked for her relatives. And he came up and he said, oh, she's pregnant, I'm going back. And just walked out. And I was like, what's going on here? But he wasn't gone for very long. He was only gone for about a week. So within that week that he was gone, he did keep coming up nearly every day, and we would talk and different things. And my intuition told me that she wasn't actually pregnant. He just wasn't real sure on how I felt. And of course I was devastated that all this was going on. I was the innocent party in this, and I'd gotten... he ended up coming back after the week, but what had happened, she had taken all of his clothes and thrown them away. So when he came back to me, all he had in his possession was his ute, one shirt, singlet, one pair of undies, basically the clothes that he stood up in, and his saddle. And chainsaw, because she didn't know whether they were his or whatever, but everything else she had thrown away. So then he came to me with absolutely nothing. So not only did we have to then start a life together, we had to buy him all new clothes and get him sorted out so that he could live. But it was a bit of a turmoil time. She used to ring me and abuse me on the phone and call me for all these names and things and that, which I just let it slide. You know, she was hurting. I never rebelled back or argued with her. I just let her get it off the chest and say, oh, are you finished now? Thanks for calling. Noted. And I would hang up. Bob was actually really good with the kids, with my daughter and with my sister's two kids. My sister went away for a couple of weeks at one stage. She went over, her partner was working overseas, so she went over there to visit him. Now, prior to her going away, my little nephew, he was quite sick. He was always quite a sickly child. He had asthma really bad and things when he was first born. But at this stage, he was pooing his pants uncontrollably. He would just poo his pants. And my sister was at her wit's ends with it. And the doctors couldn't do anything about it. But anyway, she went away and Bob and I took over, been looking after the kids and doing things, and he'd get them out on the ponies every afternoon and would give them a ride and things. Well, he stopped pooing his pants, basically for the whole 2 weeks that my sister was gone. And we worked it out that it was all stress. Because my sister, when she would get up in the mornings, and I don't know why she'd stress the kids out really, but anyway, she'd get up every morning, and before she would do anything, she would have at least half a dozen combs, marijuana combs. So she would be off her face nearly all day. But this poor little bugger, he was quite stressed, but he didn't poo his pants the whole time she was gone. While my sister was gone, it was one of the kids' birthdays. I can't remember which one it was. But anyway, my mother had come up for a few days to give me a hand with the kids and to spend there for one of them's birthday. I can't remember. And me and the kids were outside having a water fight. We had the balloon things and we're throwing them. I was having a great time with the kids. Well, anyway, I ran into the kitchen and my mother was in there. And one of the kids, or all the kids, I think, came in and threw water bombs at me while I was in the kitchen. So I threw mine back at them in the kitchen. Well, my mother wasn't impressed with that, and she backhanded me straight across the face, knocked me flying, and told me to wake up to myself and grow up. I was no longer a child. This was in my kitchen with my kids having fun. And my mother did that to me. And I stood up and I said to her, don't you ever lay a hand on me again. This is my home, and if I want to throw water bombs around, I will. So by this time in my life, I'm actually 29 years of age when my mother last hit me. So this was her violence that she did all my life. But by then, I'd really had enough. So I packed her up that day. I said, pack your things. I'm going to take you back to Brisbane tomorrow. You're not staying here any longer. And I did. So I packed her up and drove her back to Brisbane and then went straight back up to the farm. Well, didn't that create something that she wasn't very happy about? She started to come between Bob and I as much as she could. Then she started causing issues with my sister and I when she got back, and my mother blamed me that the stress from me, that I was causing my little nephew to shit his pants, and it was just horrible. And I said, well, how come he never shit his pants the whole time that Julie was away? My sister was away.